Throughout history, alchemists have been tirelessly working on unlocking the most coveted secret of the universe, the Philosopher's Stone. Following the teachings and formulas unearthed from the vast works of Hermes Trismegistus, these figures of wisdom and renown transcend time to face off against each other in a race to become the greatest alchemist the world has ever known.
All right, so what is it you guys are looking at here? Well, first off, on the main board, we have victory point track, round the outside, round the outside, round the outside. In the center, we have 6 alchemical, I'm going to struggle over some of these words tonight, 6 alchemical bowls for the 16 dice that are in 3 different colors, and you can see that they're all going to have different symbols on them. There is the experiment deck up in the top left-hand corner. In addition to that, there's going to be 5 displays of those experiments corresponding to the 5 outer bowls. So we have here going to correspond here, etc., as we go along. We have the artifact tile deck and display down here, and there are 3 different colors of the artifact tile. As you can see from back behind, we have black, we have white, and we have red as such. Then we have the 4 mastery tracks here. Then we have in the top right-hand corner the publications deck. Then down below the experiments deck, we have the turn order track. And then in the middle at the top there, we have a supply of various essences, materials, and various other tokens. Now, off-board, what you guys can't see are going to be the artifacts tiles for future rounds, as well as other decks, the 2nd and 3rd round decks, etc., etc. Now, over here on our player tableaus, as you can see on mine, we have asymmetric player laboratory boards, and these represent different figures from history. So we have the character image, as you can see here, the player color disc, as a reminder for what color you are, because otherwise the boards can match up with any colors. Then we have formula tiles for the 4 completed experiment, for the 4 columns, as well as colors. Then we have the potency track there, as well as the spent dice repository. We have a vault for formula tiles here in the middle. Then we have the transmutation track, as you can see. Now it's a 3-color track. You can see by the paths, you have black, you have white, and then you have red right there. There are also 2 different types of materials. You have raw materials, which are these round shape areas, or little holding flasks, if you will. Then we have spots for refined materials, the square ones, the square shaped boxes there. Then we have artifact storage slots. There are 2 per color in between transmutation paths. So we have, from in between this path, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. Then everybody has 2 reaction tokens, which start charged as opposed to spent on the backside. Then we have a player aid, then starter experiments, publications, artifacts, and masterpiece experiments, which before the game starts, players are going to choose one of each of these to keep, and that one of each, and then the other to discard. And everybody starts with 4 starting materials: 1 lead, 1 copper, 1 tin, and 1 mercury. All right, so that's all of everything that you're looking at between your player board as well as out here on the main board. Now, kind of an overview as to what the goal of the game is and what it is that we're trying to do here is the goal of Trismegistus is to score, as you might guess, the most victory points. Almost all of the scoring is done at the end of the game, which is at the end of the 3rd round. At that point, players move into final scoring. Now, players are going to get victory points from a number of different things. They're going to score victory points for completed experiments, as shown in the bottom right-hand corner of those experiments. Publications or endgame scoring cards that they can achieve. The Philosopher's Stone, which is whenever you move these tiles down here into this area, depending on how many you move, you're going to get some number of points. Then moving up higher on each of the mastery tracks, so any of these 4 tracks, you can see that you're going to score some number of victory points on those. And any leftover gold that you have, and any ethereal dice tokens that you may have left over as you can see, that look like these. Whoever has scored the most points will win the game. All right, so big picture here of what you're going to be doing during the game is you're going to draft dice to then use them to acquire raw materials. So these materials, raw materials out into these locations here, as well as acquiring various types of essences to be able to transmute raw or refined materials to the left along the path as shown on your player board. You're doing this to be able to complete experiments which will gain you victory points as well as possible bonuses. By spending essences in transmutation, you're going to move up the mastery tracks, which allow for more and more complex experiments to be completed. You'll also unlock formula tiles to place in your vault, which not only gain you bonuses, but also possibly bonus actions when they come down into your vault. But also they're going to score you victory points at the end of the game, as I mentioned. Now you're limited to actions, so reacting using these reaction tokens, or kind of a way to think about it is piggybacking on other players' actions at the right time, is going to be important as well. And finally, you're going to have at least one and possibly more publications which are in-game scoring cards, provided that you qualify for them, and whoever does this the best over 3 rounds wins the game. So big picture-wise, that's what you're looking at here in Trismegistus. Now, how do you actually play the game? The game takes place over 3 rounds of player-controlled length. Each round will consist of multiple player turns, and a round ends when every player has drafted and used up the potency of 3 dice each. Now, each player's turn will consist of the 4 same steps. The first one is going to be drafting a die from out here on the board, then selecting one of available player actions as shown on your handy dandy little player aid there, then possible opponent reactions, and then lab cleanup here in general. So now let's go ahead and break down each and every one of these steps. If your potency track is empty, you must draft a die from one of the 6 alchemical bowls. So I have no die here, which means I must draft a die here. Easy enough, right?
Yes.
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 If your potency track has a die on it, let's say I have this, say, here, and it's on a 1 potency space here. I may forego any remaining potency on that die and move it to the next green expended dice area to then draft another die. So maybe what I want to do is going to require more than 1 potency. So I can just choose to, you know what, forget that, and then come out here and draft another die like so. Okay?
Yep.
If you already have a die that's on the potency track, let's say it's, say, there, and you wish to continue using that die, skip drafting a die, because you already have one. You're not drafting one. You're not going to draft on every action, okay? Now, to be able to draft a die, however, let's say this were out here where it belongs. To draft a die, choose any one die from any of the available 6 bowls and set its potency on the potency track based upon how many dice were in that particular bowl prior to you taking a die. Okay, what does that mean? There are 4 dice up here. If I choose one of these dice, I'm going to set the potency to 4, to 2, to 2, to 4, to 2, etc. Okay? Easy enough. You must maintain the symbol as shown on the die when you draft it. So if you choose this symbol here, when it comes, it's going to be at potency 4. It must maintain that symbol on that die. I think that kind of goes without
Pretty
saying. The one exception to this is, however, the middle infinity symbol bowl. So let's go back and put that one back out here. You'll notice that there are 2 infinity dice when we rolled to set this up. When you select one of these dice, this is a wild symbol, so you're going to choose to set it to one of those other symbols. However, the potency of the die that you choose from here is based on how many were in that bowl. So if I choose to set it to this symbol, I'm not setting it to 4 or possibly to 5 or some other random number that you might come up with. If I set it to that symbol, how many are in that bowl? 2. So therefore, when I choose that symbol and I come from here, I'm going to go ahead and move it over to here. Now, obviously, more potency is always better, so therefore, I probably wouldn't do that with that one. I would probably just choose one of those dice, but you get the idea, okay? Again, the potency of the wild one matters. The bowl that it comes from for all of them, not just this one, but this specific, it comes from the bowl there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Lastly, if you have any of those ethereal die tokens, and what these tokens look like, as I showed, let's say I had one over here on my board, and let's say I want to choose one of these dice here. So I choose this one. It has a potency of 2. I will set it to 2, easy enough. But if I have one of these tokens, or maybe if I had more of these tokens, let's say I had 2 of these tokens. I have 2 of those tokens. I can spend 1. It does not matter how many I have. Per draft, 1 die. So I can discard one of these to bump that up 1. If it were already at 5, I could not spend any more to be able to bump it. It was at 2, I could not spend 2 to bump it to 4. I think you get the point. It's 1 per die, per action, period, done. Per draft action.
And it's only when you draft, right?
Only
you can't do it later.
when you draft, correct.
Yeah.
All right? Any questions on drafting a die?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on. So that's step 1 of 4. Now we get into the meat of the game. The meat of the game is the action step. The action step, well, it's going to dictate, or it's going to be dictated upon by the potency, the color, and or the symbol of the die that's on your potency track. You can choose to carry out one of 6 possible actions. Now that sounds like a lot, but actually it's all really, really intuitive. The first one is going to be acquire materials. So acquiring these, easy enough. The second one is going to be acquiring essences. The third one is going to be acquiring experiments. So taking these cards into your tableau. The fourth one is acquiring a artifact from the artifact market. The fifth is recharging a spent artifact. And finally, the last one is performing a transmutation. Okay, now let's go ahead and break all of those down a little bit so we can go ahead and get started. All right, the first one is acquiring materials. Now, this is going to be based upon the symbol on the die. Acquiring materials is the symbol. You may spend 1 or more potency and acquire that many raw materials of the matching type on that die and place it into that space on your player board. Okay, so my potency for this die is at, let's say we're at 4, just for argument's sake. This is set at 4. Each bowl has a matching symbol starting from the top and going clockwise. The top bowl, of course, is lead. This symbol is the symbol for lead in the game. Then we have copper, then we have tin, then we have mercury, then we have iron. Those are the 5 materials that are in the game. Do you need to remember the names of those? Nope. That symbol looks like a 5. That is the female symbol. That it looks like a 2 to me. This looks like a little alien to me. And this is the male symbol. We may interchange those as we go along, okay? But just know that those are the actual names of the symbols out there, okay? So as I mentioned, when you acquire materials, you can spend 1 or more potency according to what the symbol is on the die. My die is the 2-looking symbol down here, which this one actually is also copper. This shows that this symbol here, I can spend some number up to the number of potency that I have. So let's say I want to acquire 3 materials. When I do so, that symbol is, I'm sorry, I'm lying, it's this one. I could, let's say I acquire 3 of them, I move that down 1, 2, 3. Easy enough. I could acquire 1, I could acquire 4. If I acquire 4, this is going to get spent, but you get the idea. Any number of 1 to 4. I cannot get different types. It is whatever the symbol is that's on that die. Easy enough?
Yep.
Moving on. The next one is acquiring essences. All right, just like that one, this is going to be based upon the symbol of the die. And I want to reiterate, you can take 1 action on your turn. So when I acquired those materials, even though I acquired 3 materials, that was 1 action, okay? So resetting this back to there. Based upon the symbol of the die here, you can spend 1 or more potency to acquire that many essence from the type shown. So again, we're talking about this symbol here, that essence, as you can see there. Now there are 4 different essences in the game. The circle with the line through it is salt, the triangle is sulfur, the wheel with spokes on it is aether, and then mercury is that symbol. And yes, mercury is both a material and an essence, but more on that later. So I can spend any number of potency on my track to acquire that many sulfur. So, for instance, if I choose to acquire 2 sulfur, I would bump that down and I would add 2 sulfur to my board. Easy enough. Now, if I had that symbol, I could choose any of the 4 in which to acquire as essence. Now would be a good time to point out the symbols there, like so. You can acquire any mix of those, and if you acquire mercury, actually mercury is going to be as simple as putting a mercury onto there because it doubles both as a material and an essence. Any questions on acquiring essence?
Nope.
No.
Okay, easy enough. Next is acquiring an experiment. So this is based upon the symbol on the die, just like the others. You spend 1 potency and acquire 1 of the available experiments that is next to the bowl that matches the symbol of your die. Well, I don't need to switch back. You guys know I have this die on my potency track, so that means I can acquire 1 of those 2 experiments. If I had this die, it'd be that one, etc., etc. Now, you are only limited to 2 experiments face up next to your player board, okay? All acquired experiments or any experiments that you acquire are going to be face up. Only your masterpiece, which you're going to get 1 at the beginning of the game, or 2 and then choose 1. Only this one will be face down and in your hand, does not count towards the 2 that you have face up on your player board. So for argument's sake, let's say I only had that one here, then I can take this action, spending 1 potency to acquire either of those 2. When I acquire it, I take it, I bring it over here, I spend the 1 potency, boom, done, that's acquiring an experiment. Any questions on that?
Nope.
And then, do you refill?
You do. And I'll get into that here in a little bit.
Got it.
Okay? All right. Next is acquiring an artifact. This is based upon the color of the die here. No longer does it matter the symbol. So any symbol, it just matters the color. All right? So you spend exactly 3 potency, so it'd be 1, 2, 3. If you don't have 3, you cannot choose this action. You then claim 1 of the 2 artifacts that match the color of your die. It's a red die. So in this case, we come over here and we look at the artifact market. You'll notice that there are 2 red, 2 black, and 2 white. There are 3 different color of dice. So because my die is a red one, I can choose 1 of these 2 artifacts to choose, okay? When I choose, so let's say for argument's sake, let's say I choose this artifact here, I place it in any artifact space on my player board, regardless of the color. If it occupies a space where there already was an artifact, so let's say I had this artifact there like so, and I wanted to place it there, I would then just discard this one out. But let's say I go ahead and place this one right there. You immediately trigger the benefit of the artifact. Okay, so you get what it is, but you do not expend the artifact. You do not flip it over. Does that make sense? So you get whatever the bonus is at the bottom of the artifact, but it's kind of a acquisition bonus for the artifact. Okay? Any questions on that?
Makes sense.
Okay. There will come a time where these are face down, like so. When you transmute, you may be able to trigger, I'll get into that in a little bit. Your 5th option as an action is to spend 1 potency, and it doesn't matter anything about the die, just spend 1 potency to then flip over any 1 artifact that you have in your tableau that's face down.
Can you spend more potency to do multiple?
No, it is 1 potency for 1 artifact. Okay? All right. So now let's go ahead and talk about the biggest action here, and that is how to perform a transmutation. All right, and that is the sixth and final option that you have on your turn to take an action. This is going to be based upon the color of your die. You're going to choose one or more raw or refined materials of one type. So you can choose multiple. So let's say, for argument's sake, let's go ahead and set this up like I can do it. Let's say it's like so. So let's say I have something like this. Here is how my board is set up. This is based upon the color of the die. Choose one or more raw materials and refined of a single type of a color of a pathway that matches the color of your die. It is a red die. These are red pathways. So transmuting from here to there or from here to there is possible with this die. To be able to transmute from there to there would require a black die, there to there a black, white, etc.
Yep.
I can choose any number of these in which to transmute into silver, okay? You're going to spend one essence of your choice in any mix of those per material that you're transmuting. So let's say I want to transmute all three of these bad boys and turn them into silver. That would require 1, 2, 3 different essence. Well, I have 1, 2, and then remember, I can use mercury as a third essence. That would be a third essence to be able to spend to transmute, okay? Move those materials to the next refined, so they're always going to go up to the refined, regardless whether or not they were refined or raw previously. For each material you just transmuted, you're going to spend 1 potency, so that's going to be 1, 2, 3 there. And for each essence spent, you move up 1 step on the mastery track, and there are multiple that are possible. Well, I just spent 2 triangle, which I believe are sulfur, and then 1 mercury. So now let me bring your attention to the mastery track here. You'll notice that each one has a symbol on it, and these are variable, but this being our first game of its stream, we went ahead and went with the standard ones. I spent 2 triangle, or 2 sulfur essence, so I would move up 2 on that track. 1 is the mercury track, so I would move up 1 on the mercury track, like so. Okay, easy enough?
Yep.
And again, a reminder, you can spend mercury either as material cubes, either raw or refined, as an essence to advance up the mastery track as I just showed, okay? The choice is yours, or you can use it to transmute into the next material, but it's entirely up to you. If you land on or pass, let's say I actually was here and I got 1, 2, because I spent 2 there. If you land on or pass any of these bonus symbols, you immediately receive the bonus as shown, but you do not take the marker off the board. So this says I get to advance up 1 more track. Yeah, maybe we'll get going on that track. Oy vey. Right there, like so. Okay? If you're already at the top here, and you advance 1 step, 2 steps, 7 steps, you get 1 point for pinging it per action. Okay? So it doesn't matter how many steps you would ping it up against, you still only score 1 victory point. And lastly, during a transmutation, your materials passed over a space with an active artifact. So remember earlier, maybe I had claimed this artifact right there. I just transmuted. It does not matter how many times I transmuted that. I can activate this artifact 1 time, get whatever the bonus is, and then by doing so, I flip it face down like so. Now, I do want to point something out. It's a bit of an edge case, but it's important to point out. If there is anything here, let's say for argument's sake, I had no mercury, and I had 2 here, and I actually only had 1 essence. Let me give this example. And I had a few potency here. I say I want to transmute both of those into silver. Well, it requires 1 essence and 1 potency per to be able to do so. So it would be 1, which would cost 1 potency, and that would cost this. Well, you'll notice I have no essence left, and I have no mercury. However, because after I transmuted that, I'm going to get a few things. I'm going to get this essence, and I'm going to go ahead and get 2 I believe those are lead, so I would get those. Oh, I then immediately can spend that one to then finish that transmutation there. Does that make sense? And then by doing so, I flip that over. Okay? Any questions about performing a transmutation? Okay? Now, that was a lot of information, I realize. Those are the 6 available actions that you can take, and you can do any one of them on your turn, but obviously some actions may allow you or force you to spend more than a single potency.
Yep.
Here they are again. Acquiring materials, acquiring essences, acquiring an experiment, as long as you don't have 2 already face up, acquiring an artifact, recharging a spent artifact, or performing a transmutation of as many type of a single type of material. Any questions on the 6 main actions in the game?
No.
All right. In addition now to a single action on your turn, you can carry out any amount of free actions that you wish to before or after your main action. There are 3 free actions. They're very simple. Purchase a formula, use an acquired formula, or perform 1 or more experiments. So, let me bring you over to my player board again. Purchasing a formula. Well, let's say maybe I've transmuted some silver into gold, and I have a couple of gold up here hanging out up there. There are 4 types or 4 groups of 2 formulas at the top of your player board. Within each group, there are 2 formulas. One of them can be purchased with gold. The other one can only be unlocked by performing a matching colored experiment, but more on that in a little bit. The cost of your first purchase is 1 gold, and you can choose any available formula. So, okay, let's say I wanted to purchase one of these 2 formulas. So I would spend 1 gold, I take this formula here, and I put it down into my vault, any of the available 7 spaces. The spent gold I'm actually going to put into the location there to signify that I purchased that for gold. It's going to be an important reminder later on. So the first one that you purchase, and maybe instead I chose to purchase this one instead. That's fine. I can purchase any one of those 2, any one of those 2, etc., for 1 gold. Subsequent purchases are 1 more gold than the previous purchase. So the second one that I choose to purchase, maybe I choose to purchase this one, would cost me 2 gold. Then the third one, 3 gold. What I cannot do, however, is once I purchase this one with gold, I cannot purchase the second in a group with gold. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's go back to that example, like so. Once you've purchased it, then you place the material, or I'm sorry, lost my spot. There we go. You're going to move it down into your vault into any open space. When you do so, boom, done, easy enough. I could put it here, wherever I want. At any point on my turn, this turn, future turn, doesn't matter, I can flip this over to use it, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let's say on a subsequent turn, maybe I purchased this one for 2 gold like so, and then I completed a row or a column. I then immediately get whatever the 2 bonuses that bookend that. If I'd placed it here, I would have taken those 2 bonuses, etc., etc. We'll go over the bonuses as they become relevant during the game, but just understand you get those when you complete that. Anything that you cannot do is forfeit at the moment in which you trigger those bumps or those bonuses.
Right.
All right? Any uncovered formula tile space now at the top of your board, this is going to convey a discount on completing experiments to a maximum of 2 discounts per matching colored experiment. More on that here in a little bit though. So the second free action, so buy one of these. Okay. Second free one is use an acquired formula. Okay, flip it over. Hey, cool, I get 2 silver. So let's say that wasn't there. Boom, I get 2 silver. There you go. That's a one-time use. It's face down permanently for the rest of the game. Easy enough?
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Now, if I wanted to also on the same turn, I could also trigger that one. This says get any 2 essence. So maybe I choose to get those 2 essence, and I flip that over. Okay, boom, done. The last one is performing one or more experiments. Finally, we actually start to rack up some points. That is the goal of the game, after all, right? Allow me to reset up my board a little bit for this. Let's say it were like so. There. Okay. Let's say it's my board. I took some amount of actions. I did something. Doesn't matter. Before or after doing so, I can complete or fulfill these recipes, complete these experiments. Again, you can have two face up as well as the real hard ones, one of these face down. You can complete any mix of them, multiple of them on your turn if you wish to do so. To be able to perform an experiment, you must meet both of the requirements as shown in the top corners of the card. Now, I'm going to use this blue one as the example, as you can see here. Okay? So this requirement is a material requirement. This says that I must have one lead and one of that refined
Iron.
Okay, there we go. I must have one lead and one iron as shown there. Easy enough. I do. Good to go. In addition to that, I must be at a 2-level mastery of
Water.
as you can see there. So we take a look over here, and you'll notice that on the water track, I'm actually only at a 1 mastery. That's okay, because I'm about to explain why that's okay. If I were at 2 or higher, then I would meet all the requirements easy enough. However, gold can always be used as a replacement for any one material. So let's say I didn't have that one. I have lead, but I don't have
Iron.
Thank you. So I could then, in lieu of iron, I could spend 1 gold to replace that. Easy enough. Or silver can always be used, can always be spent to make up for a shortcoming on a mastery track requirements on a 1-to-1 basis. I was 1 short, that would require 1 silver. If I was 2 short, so I didn't even advance any of it, well, that would require 2 silver. I could do so, like so. Then I've met the requirements, okay? But remember earlier I mentioned about discounts. What color is this experiment?
Blue.
So if I had any of these removed and was already down here, I then can use this to either augment that at a -1 cost or that lower 1 number. So this would actually only require me to have 1 of those or 1 up on the water mastery or higher, obviously. Okay? But as it is, that's not there. So therefore, I must have them all minus any augmentation that I wish to use with silver and gold. Okay? All right. Once all the requirements are met, you claim any bonuses in the bottom left-hand corner of the experiment in any order. So in this case, advance on any 1 mastery track and advance 1 on the water mastery track. Okay, cool, good deal. I get that. Then the victory points as shown here, I'll get at the end of the game. Then afterwards, I'm going to tuck this down into that color's track. Nothing else matters. It just shows that, hey, I've completed at least 1 of the blue experiments. But remember earlier I said that 1 of these is locked for experiments and 1 is available for purchase? Well, I just unlocked it. So that means I can choose either of those 2 tiles to then come down. I bring that down. I then can do both of those things and I can trigger that whenever I want. So you see how things kind of snowball and can kind of chain together.
Yep.
Okay? Important distinction. There are 8 formula tiles at the top. You have 7 spaces. You may never unlock your 8th tile, ever. You can either purchase 4 and then unlock 3. You can unlock 4 and purchase 3 at most. So the 7th or the 8th one will never ever be unlocked. So those are all the available actions and free actions available in the game. Any questions on that?
Nope. Makes
No.
sense.
Okay. All right. Now we go into step 3. So step 1, draft a die if applicable. Second one, choose 1 action, do any amount of free actions. The third one is opponent reactions. Now, after you've completed your action and you've taken any free actions that you may have, or want to take or have chosen to take, each of your opponents can now react or piggyback onto your actions. or on your actions, I should say. Almost entirely, these can be done simultaneously, but if for whatever reason a player says, hey, I want to do these in player order, do them in player order. If a player has an unspent reaction token on their board, so it's my turn, I just took my took my actions. Then, simultaneously, anybody that has unspent reaction tokens can then spend one of their reactions to be able to do one of these available things, okay? There are 3 things that they can do. They can gain a single raw material that matches my die. I'm the active player. So they literally take one die, it is that symbol right there, and they place it into, there you go, one raw material, just like what Greg did. Or in lieu of that, they can gain a single essence that matches my die. That here would be a triangle. Easy enough. Or they may transmute a single material following the normal rules, but it has to be along the transmutation path that matches the color of my die, meaning it has to transmute across the red paths. And by a single transmutation, I mean one material. Whereas for the active player, they can spend multiple potency to do multiple within one material. It's one material and one thing, okay? Last option is recharge a single artifact on their board. So they spend their reaction and they flip over a reaction tile, easy enough, okay?
Cool.
I just want to reiterate that the dice that are on their own boards have no bearing on a reaction. All that matters is the active player's die and what symbol, color, etc., it is. Any questions on that?
Makes sense.
All right. The last thing now is lab cleanup. So if your die has no more potency, so if this is at the 0 after you're done with it, just move it over to the spent area, whether it's the 1, 2, or 3, first, second, third die, easy enough. If it's your third die, so let's say maybe I've done that and that on my turn, that's it. That's the end of my round. I am allowed to react, but I can no longer take actions, nor can I take free actions, because you can't take a free action except before or after your action. I have no action, so my round's done. Okay?
Yep.
If at the end of your turn you've landed or passed on a bonus marker, remember earlier I passed over this? It's possible that maybe somebody piggybacked on a reaction could also land or pass on it. They would get that. But at the end of my turn, once I passed over it, if nobody else piggybacked and did it, whoop, now it's out of the game. Okay? There you go. That's the end of my turn. It then becomes Jess's turn, then Greg's, then Ken's, etc., until all 4 of us have all of our dice out here. Okay? One other thing I should point out is at the end of your turn, when you have finished your third die, you're then going to, over there on the turn order track, drop your turn order marker and move it all the way over to the first available space. So in other words, the first one done in a round is going to become first, next round, etc., etc. It's not a choose what order, it's a go to the highest number.
Yep.
Easy enough?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Once all of us have finished with all 3 of our dice, we're going to do a number of things on all of our boards, etc. We're going to flip all of our artifacts, flip all of our reactions face up. So awesome, okay? If it's the end of the 3rd round, we stop at that point and then just go into final scoring. But other than that, we're going to empty the artifact market, put out the level 2s or round 2s and refill the artifact market. Then we're going to replace the experiment deck with the new rounds experiment deck. Only at the end of round 2 do we then discard any round 1 experiments.
Okay.
Okay? Then we're going to fill any empty spaces with the next round's experiment deck. Move the turn order discs back up to the top row. Re-roll all the dice and then place them out here according to their symbols. Now, it is possible that this can cause re-rolls because you're allowed a total of 5 dice in a given bowl. If at any point there are 6 or more dice in a given bowl, we're going to re-roll all those dice and then put them into the appropriate bowls, which then may cause a chain reaction, which then maybe we have to re-roll another bowl, etc., etc. If there are ever 2 bowls with 6 or more dice in them at the same time, we start here, go clockwise, going around, okay? All right. there are also some miscellaneous tokens in here and everything. As they come up, we'll talk about them. Not going to bother covering chameleon tokens and everything right now. Last thing, talk about final scoring. At the end of the third round, here's how we score. We're going to score completed experiments. So anything that is tucked under your player board here, you're going to score all of these numbers down in the bottom right-hand corner. Then, players are going to score any publications that they have on their board, okay? Now, anything that's been achieved with element symbols, which I really haven't talked about element symbols. So you'll notice that this requires 4 elements on it, as does the one above it. This requires 2 water and 2 wind. So any experiments that you have tucked under here will count as 1 water element. Easy enough. Any artifact that you have down here in the corner will count as a element of that artifact. Or of that symbol. There are multiple artifact tiles as the game goes on that have 2 symbols on them. That will count as 2, okay? Also, in addition to that, these symbols, if you have reached the very top, and these are not limited to just one player, you also get an extra element symbol on that. However, if you use an element symbol on a publication card, you cannot double dip. So if I use 2 water on this one, I then can't use one of those 2 water for this one. I think that's self-explanatory, but just want to make sure. So I would actually need 3 water and 3 wind and 2 fire to actually be able to activate and score both of these cards at the end of the game. And I would score based on whatever it says at the bottom of the card. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. Then you're going to score the Philosopher's Stone, meaning this here. You're going to score based on this ratio. If I had 3 tiles here, I'm going to score 4 points. It goes up to 36 if you unlock all 7 of them. It does not matter if they are spent or unspent. Then you're going to score 1 victory point for any leftover gold, 1 victory point for each ethereal dice token, and then you're going to score 2, 4, or 7 points respectively if you are on any of those respective spaces. Whoever has the most points wins. If tied, most completed experiments. If still tied, you sharing the victory. Now, there is a variant that we are not playing with tonight. It's the achievement variant, which there are achievements. First one to achieve it scores whatever victory points are shown on it. It is there. I assure you, there's going to be enough for you guys to follow along tonight without us having to do that. So we're not playing with these, but just know that the game comes with them. Boom, and that is how you play Trismegistus. All right.
Right on.
Any questions?
Now.
Did you guys see any in the peanut gallery, Jess? Did you?
No.
Okay. All right. So give us an hour to reset everything after I've made a disaster of my player board. All right. So what do we have? This one goes there. I'm being told.
Your 2 mercury die go
Right here, and then you
Hold
have...
on. Oh, here. I will
a
set
Captain
those
Hook.
out there.
That's fine.
Okay. You guys know where things are.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So talk amongst yourselves. Go ahead while I try and reset my board. So it should be 1, 1, 1.
Oh.
And we need to randomize turn order so we can figure out bonus.
You got it, Greg?
I got it.
All right.
That's why I'm invited to the stream.
It's the only reason we have you around. That's right.
We're going to decide on these too, right?
We do. All right. So we're just going to schwazi it up. So first and then clockwise from there for the first. Here we go. All right, Greg, you're first. So it's going to go gray, red, purple, blue, which that's going to impact
Yeah, we get
what
some
we
special
get.
extra
We
stuff,
do.
right?
I will look that up real quick. So the first player gets their 2 reaction tokens. Congrats. Second player gets 1 ethereal die token.
Sweet.
The third player gets 2 ethereal die tokens. I need one more, please. And fourth, so Jess in this case, gets 2 ethereal die tokens and an extra mercury. Congrats. There you go. So throw that down on mercury. All right. So now we are ready to get started. Okay. However, now we all are going to, and you know what? Do me a favor. Shuffle those in since you guys saw them. Shuffle them in there. We're all going to choose. Where did my second starter go?
It was here. It might have fallen down.
All right, we'll figure
it's
that
right
out. Oh, I tucked it under right there. My
You
bad.
already scored it.
Yep, there we go. So everyone's going to choose one of their starters, one of their masterpiece experiments. They're going to choose one of their 2 starter tiles and one of the publications. The publications do not go out of the game. The others do. Okay? All right.
Yep.
So while I figure that out, I will bring the cameras up and the chat and make sure that I have the chat scrolled. There we go. Gold can be used for mastery as well as materials. That's true. Thank you for the reminder. I agree with that statement. You know what? Here, you guys can actually take a look along with me. So these are my 2 starter tiles.
The publications go
Where
back, right?
the publications go to the bottom. Yes. Those are my 2 starter ones. Do these kind of work together? So we have a transmutation and an ethereal dye, but that's also a water and a fire. You know what? We're going
Bottom of
to
the deck.
start with
That's what you
this
said.
one for our mastery. Or, I'm sorry, not our masterpiece. I will start with this one. I don't know where I'm going to put it yet. That goes out of play. So I will discard this one. I will choose that one. And then I will have to take a look. Oh boy, I hope I didn't choose poorly with my... I did. You know what? I have these 2. Everybody look down. There you go. So because I chose poorly with this one, I think I'm just going to choose that and just go with that to be able to be my starter publication. Okay, done. This one can go to the bottom. So now it's just a matter of which one, where do I put this? So looking at this, I need I need this. So it makes sense to go ahead and put that right there like so.
I'm glad to see you and I are thinking the same with synergizing.
All right, here we go.
Am I?
Maybe not on purpose.
Okay. Oh, and Rainer points out. By the way, for those that don't know, Rainer All Fours, he's with Board and Dice, so he's here in chat. Thanks for hanging out, Rainer, as well as everybody else. You can always spend refined in place of raw, but not the other way around. I think that's mostly universal. My player aid now, that's endgame scoring for the backside. The other side shows the available actions. We're actually going to keep these over here so Jess and I have reminders on our end of the table.
We have our own.
Okay. And we're almost ready to get started. I'm going to keep this up as a end of round reminder. Cool. Whew. All right, let me get something to drink and we'll get started.